everyone, and welcome to Ragtrader Live, powered by St.George. We are waiting for Nadia Bartel to scoot on over to the stage. If anyone has ever taken a flight from Sydney to Melbourne or vice versa, you know they are always delayed or cancelled, and you have to beg the front desk to find you a seat. That's the position Nadia is in today, so we're just going to wait for her to head in. But in the meantime, I'm going to introduce the first session. Bloggers. Hated that word when it came out. I was just talking to the girls before. I don't quite understand selfies or why people take photos of themselves pouting and place them on Instagram. But of course, bloggers are so much more than that, which is why we now refer to them as influencers. Both of the girls on stage don't just take selfies. They do brand consultation, they devise marketing strategies, digital strategies, and help transform brands to address the modern market, which is very much about digital and bricks and mortar. So we have Sarah Donaldson from Harper and Harley and Jasmine Howell from, is it Friend in Fashion or Friends in Fashion? Just one friend.
I'm your friend.
So since launching her blog Harper and Harley, Sarah has worked with numerous Australian and international brands, including Estee Lauder, Mercedes-Benz, Sephora, Tony Bianco, Uniqlo, Gucci, Nike, and David Jones. With the help of her friend Georgia Martin, she also launched an online store, The Undone. Jasmine is a key digital influencer and no stranger to brand collaborations herself. She has worked with the likes of Estee Lauder, Farfetch, Asos, The Outnet, Pandora, and Veuve Clicquot. Her work stretches far outside her blog and includes presenting live fashion events, online videos, and luxury travel collaborations. So please give them a round of applause. And I'm going to head over here to be closer to you guys. How comfortable are the seats?
They're pretty good.
Am I going to fall off?
They're a little high.
Ooh, I don't know, I'm 31. This is balancing. So girls, tell me a little bit about the early foundations of your blogs and of your digital presence, because who you are today is very different to who you started out as.
We actually started out around the same time, so 2008 and 2009. So before Instagram, if you can believe it.
Can you believe a world without Instagram before that?
Wow.
So it really was focusing on our websites and nothing much else.
Okay, and what did that entail?
It was, for me, it wasn't photos of myself. It was more of a curating what I liked. I was following all the runways from overseas, like really compiling that information, looking at lookbooks and designs I liked, and it was kind of showcasing an aesthetic.
Okay. And what about you?
For me, I think I came from it from a little bit of a different point of view. I actually kind of found the blog by accident almost. I have a finance background, so I was working corporate in home loans. And
wow.
I was very corporate. I was in suiting, 9 to 5. Yeah, and then for me, just one day I got to work and I was like, you know what, I'm going to start a blog. I didn't really read them. I didn't really know what it was. But the thought process was one day I'm going to be really old and grey and I want my grandchildren to see how cool I was and how good my style was. So for me, it started very much as a visual diary. Just as the things that I wanted to be wearing that I didn't get the chance to because I was in a very corporate environment. And again, like Sarah said, when we started, it wasn't really a thing. There weren't really bloggers or influencers. There weren't really platforms. It was just more of a personal diary for me anyway. And then it all kind of took off from there.
Then you kind of realise that what people actually want was to see you, to see the girl behind the computer and to actually get to know them on a personal level.
Absolutely.
And that's why, you have to start doing your own outfit.
It's so strange because I remember, like, I thought it was very strange putting photos of yourself up on the internet. I remember taking pictures of my outfits, but like cutting my head off, just like outfit. And I remember I'd get emails from people reading and they're like, it's a bit weird that you're cutting your head off. And I'm like, isn't it more weird that I'm just displaying myself on the internet? So it's really funny to think back that way and then look to now, fast forward, 6, 7, 8 years to where everyone's on show 24/7 on the internet.
So there was a point where bloggers migrated out of just being, I guess, models or digital models into actually working with brands. For you guys, at what point did you find that turning point, and how do you work with brands? Like, what are some of the projects that you've worked on at a commercial level or at a business level?
I'm trying to think back to maybe my first collaborations. I think Swarovski was actually quite forward-thinking, and they were one of the bigger...
These seats are so uncomfortable.
I think you might be back to front.
Oh, that's why. I'm like, how can they get it?
We've got a left.
Yeah,
there we go.
yeah.
Give the old one, no. Okay, I see how it is. Yeah, go on.
Make it tricky for you. Yeah, I think I remember Swarovski being very forward-thinking, but then again, maybe it was more of an international kind of influence. International brands have been working with bloggers for a long time, and it just took Australian brands that little bit longer.
So how did Swarovski just call you up one day and say,
No.
come on, love, let's work together?
Do you know, I think it was through, I was part of a network called Felt.
Okay.
And it grouped a lot of, maybe 6 or 7 of us together. And so I was aligned with like Nicole Warren and Zanita and Oracle Fox and Margaret Zhang, and it was a wonderful network of influencers, and they wanted to work with us in a group, but on our individual platforms. They could kind of see the impact we could have individually and as a collective.
And what work did you undertake with them?
It was posting, wearing the product and kind of showcasing how you could wear them in a realistic and a relatable way.
Mm-hmm. And Jasmine, earlier you were talking about the work that you did with Tony Bianco, which
Yeah. So for me, moving from finance, I always had a really strong kind of interest in the e-marketing space. So I kind of touched on that while I was in that kind of finance environment, and then, you know, started to pick up little tips and tricks along the way. And I always enjoyed the marketing side of things. So for me, I wanted to work with a fashion-specific brand to really kind of harness that. So when I moved to Melbourne, I actually started working in-house at Tony Bianco, and I was there basically to build their whole social strategy, digital network. But in terms of collaboration, for me, it took a while. I think when we first started, there wasn't really a commercial reality around being a blogger or having a website. I remember when I started, I would tell my friends that I have this website, and they're like, are you a designer? Are you a model? Like, they just didn't...
What do you do?
What do you do? Like, they just didn't get it. So it wasn't, I think, until quite a few years into it, and now only really within the last maybe 2 or 3 years, that brands are really coming together to work and harness the power of bloggers and influencers, and there is that commercial reality around the environment. Before, it was just kind of one-off things maybe, or like Sarah said, she was in a group of a few bloggers where a brand could see the value in a group, you know, a group of people with a really great presence. But
and so you helped them devise a digital strategy, is that
yeah,
right?
So my background is strategy and I guess creative direction as well. So I went into an environment that obviously had really great product. They had a lot of stores, a lot of physical stores, but no real digital presence or footprint. So for me, the challenge was really coming in and bringing my experience in the online space and then transforming that to maybe a more traditional retail environment where they were maybe a little bit apprehensive to maybe engage influencers or bloggers at that time, because again, you know, this was quite a few years ago when you wouldn't really pay people to wear your product. Like, it wasn't a concept that people were very familiar with. So, and I was saying to Sarah just before, you know, the challenge in building an online community, particularly from a brand point of view, really is that transition from almost begging people to kind of engage and wear your product to the point where the mass see it and they're like, actually, we want to be aligned with that brand. We're happy to do it and we want to be a part of that community. So it really is building that community, and it takes a lot of time and a lot of work. It doesn't just kind of happen. And I'm sure you get the same thing. Like, I get asked a lot, like, so what's the secret? You know, like, what's the quick fix? How did you get all these Instagram followers? And it's like, it's a lot more behind the scenes.
It's like 8 years, 7 years.
Yeah, it's a lot of time, and like I was saying, like, Instagram is just one platform.
Yeah,
you know?
there are other platforms.
Yeah.
So what are the key ways to grow your online following and, more importantly, your online engagement? What have been some of the most successful projects or initiatives that you've both worked on?
I think number one is creating content continuously and making sure that content is of a high level.
How continuous?
All the time.
Like,
Yeah, like 24/7. It doesn't end.
Yeah.
There's never a point, I think, when you're blogging or whatever in social media that you're like, I can just sit back and relax. I've got enough content.
So how frequently do you post content, Sarah?
Well, for Instagram, the basic rule I live by is every 3 hours.
Wow.
During the working day.
Yeah. And back in the day as well, like when Instagram was very new, like I remember posting 4, 5, 6 times a day. And that was really how you would see that huge growth in numbers.
Yeah.
What about traction? What posts get the most traction?
It depends on time of day
Okay.
and the day of the week and what
Give me
kind
some
of...
examples.
Well, I always like the time of day where everyone's commuting. to work when they are on their phones. So during the working day, it is a little bit tricky to kind of engage with them because everyone actually has a job to do and may not be on their phones, although they also are. So
would that be 7 a.m. or?
It's between like 7 and 9 a.m. And then you want to get well, if you're looking after the millennials, you want to look after the kids finishing from school. So you want to get the 3 o'clock mark. And then also you want to get the 5 p.m. to 7 p.m.
Perfect.
And for me, it's probably a little later as well. That evening engagement personally is just a huge, I mean, if you think about your usage as well, I know personally, I'm at home at like 8 o'clock at night. I'm not watching TV anymore. I'm on my phone, scrolling through, and just think about that multiplied by your friends and your other networks. It's like, that's when people are kind of just looking, browsing, you know. So,
and what kind of content? Is it a selfie? Is it a...
I'm the worst at selfies. I feel like I have really short arms, so the selfies are very confronting. So I like try not to do
No selfie zone.
No, I'm not very good at them. But I think for me, I guess I'm positioned a lot in that kind of that fashion lifestyle arena. So something that maybe gives a bit of a twist to something that anyone can just buy off the rack. You know? How can I style something that I really love in something that's going to even inspire or just grab a little bit of attention that's maybe different from me just wearing a jacket? You know, how can I do something different?
What about you, Sarah?
Well, I work in both the fashion and the beauty landscape. So a selfie for me actually does quite well if I have an amazing lipstick on or an eye that's quite captivating or a good brow. So I can deliver a selfie with good engagement.
Fantastic. And what about in terms of commercial projects? What are some of the most successful or memorable projects that you've engaged with in terms of partnering with another brand?
Do you know what? I think it was... I collaborated with Tony Bianco, I think after you had
your design
moved on. But I did an amazing design collaboration with them maybe two years ago. Anthony at Tony Bianco gave me so much freedom in working together, completely supported me, and it was a lovely hybrid of both of what you wanted to deliver. And those styles kept on selling out, and they then repeated a style continuously for over a year.
Oh, wow.
So it was really successful.
And how hands-on were you in the design process? Like, did you...
I sketched it up. I went and met with him. I'm like, I want to do a knot. And we tried forever to work out how to do this knot on the shoe. No, I am very hands-on with what I want to deliver. If my name's on it, I have to be fully across it.
Wow. And that repeated for a year? What was the style?
It was a high heel with a knot at the toe and around the ankle.
So the knot was worth it?
It was so worth it.
The knot was worth it.
I knew I had to work this out.
Yeah, fantastic. And what about you,
I actually
Jasmine?
have a very similar experience. I feel like the best partnerships and collaborations are things that go beyond an Instagram post or, you know, just a once-off. You know, it's really those meaningful engagements with brands that go on. So I've actually done quite a few brand design collaborations, which for me has been really exciting because you can really express kind of your own style and your own influence. So I've done a shoe collaboration as well as Sarah, and again, you know, sold out success. I've also done really great brand design collaborations.
Woo! Here she is. Come to the stage. Everyone has to give her a round of applause. Welcome, Nadia.
Thank you. So sorry.
We were just talking about how unreliable the Melbourne to Sydney flight is. Whether it's going down or coming back up, it's a nightmare.
So bad. A few hours late, but that's okay.
That's okay. So we're just talking about some of the most successful brand collaborations that influencers have had with other companies. And Jasmine, you were saying you had also a shoe collaboration.
So I started with shoes. I also did we're up there. Okay. I also did a diffusion by Jasmine jewelry line as well, which was really successful. And then probably one of my most recent design collaborations was with DeCuba. So I designed a spring racing dress collaboration. We designed 4 dresses, and again, like Sarah, from scratch. I like sketched out the silhouette and we looked at fabrications, and it was really quite a long process. It was almost 6 months in the making before it hit the stores. And then I think the biggest pinch myself moment was when I was at the races and seeing women wearing my dresses.
That's amazing.
I would go up to them and be like, "You're wearing my dress," and they're like, "What are you talking about?
Yeah, get away
like
from
my
me."
dress." Yeah, so that was like a really pinch yourself moment, and that was something that was obviously distributed online. I was able to broadcast through my network as well, but also through the retail storefronts of DeCuba as well. So for me, it's really looking at these other partnerships that are an ongoing brand affiliation rather than just a one-off, wear this or, you know, promote this every
And how did that conversation start? Did they approach you, or did you approach them?
It was a bit of both.
Okay.
You know, because I like to work with brands that I have that I wear or that I see some kind of value in and that my audience will really respond to. So for me, it was just kind of getting that initial dialogue starting and then really trying to work out ways that we could both mutually benefit from this relationship. You know, it's one thing for me to say, I want to design dresses, and for a brand to actually go, well, the commercial reality is this. So I think when you do find that synergy between brand and influencer, that's really when that's the really successful partnership. You know, when it's not just a brand coming to you and say, wear this, or you going to a brand and saying, can I wear this? It's like,
it needs to make sense.
Yeah, it has to make sense, and your audience sees through it.
And what about you, Nadia? What would you say is one of the most successful brand collaborations that you've undertaken?
I think for me, I don't know if Jasmine designed a dress with Aselio as well, but it would have to be designing a dress with Aselio. So Aselio was a brand that, as Jasmine was mentioning, a brand that I love to wear, I've worn for many years. And then I also have my online store, The Connection, so I stock Aselio as one of the brands that I love to wear, and they approached me with the opportunity. I'd been chatting to them about designing a capsule collection as well, which might be happening in the future. But yeah, the Nadia dress, which we designed, it was quite a long process, but it's something that is so enjoyable, and I think it's something that you really get to sort of hone in on your design skills. And yeah, it was a massive success. There were hundreds and hundreds of units sold, which was really nice to see, because I think as anyone, even when I think you're starting a brand or any business that it is that you're doing, I think it's always really scary and stressful as well, because I think you're putting yourself out there, as a person and as a creative. And then I had moments designing my Aselio dress where I think a week before they were meant to go wholesale and sell it, I was like, I want to pull out. I don't want to do this anymore, because I was like worried that people wouldn't love it. So I think it's always nice that when a brand that you've worked with, if it's, you know, something that you may have designed, or something that you're collabing on together, if it's a shoot or whatever that may be, if then when it goes out to market and people love it as much as you do, that's the nice thing. That's the thing that you're really proud of.
And how did that conversation start between you and the brand?
It was a little bit of a mutual discussion initially, because obviously I move a lot of Aselio product on my online store, The Connection, and when Aselio...
so the collaboration happened after you started stocking the label?
Yes, yeah.
Oh,
yeah, so I've been wearing Aselio for many years, and then from me wearing the brand, I wanted to stock it on my online store. And we'd always been chatting loosely about maybe doing a design collaboration together, maybe more of a capsule collection. And I'm from Melbourne, so Melbourne's very heavy with spring racing, so the dress sort of launched in time for the spring racing carnival, so it was a good fit.
Perfect. And you guys both have your own online store.
Yeah.
Yes.
You're not necessarily, you know, from an e-commerce background, and yet a lot of fashion brands get their own e-commerce stores so wrong, and they get the best experts in town and spend squillions of money trying to get it right and then getting it wrong anyway. How did you go about the process of setting up your own online stores? Because it's quite a daunting process, everything from setting up the interface to carrying stock. Do you want to indent stock? Do you want to hold stock? How was that process for you guys?
So,
I wouldn't do it.
I'm not doing it.
I do have a little bit of e-commerce background. So I first worked at Westfield in the digital department.
I take it back.
It's fine. And then I was at Mania as their marketing manager and their sales manager, and running the e-commerce store. So I was seeing what was going on both in a corporate environment as well as a boutique one as well. And because I was running the Mania social media account, I could see the impact Instagram had on their sales. And then also through Harper & Harley, I could see the impact of my outfit posts had on sales as well. So we work with affiliate programs like Reward Style, Shop Style, and you can actually see the sales come through from a blogging endpoint. And so I knew that I could back myself putting my name on something for it to move on an e-commerce platform. So that's why I decided to launch, and I feel like that might have been your path as well, is that you could actually have the data behind you to take that leap, which is a huge one financially and emotionally.
Did you have investors, or did you invest your own finances?
Invest
into
my
it?
own, yeah.
It's even scarier.
Terrifying.
Yeah.
But so far, you know, we were only maybe 10 months in. We launched in July last year. And so far, so good. We've had an amazing response from both the industry and consumers, and we have wonderful customers that come back week on week. So it's been a really exciting journey, terrifying, but rewarding.
What's the biggest challenges in running an online store?
I think
everything from returns to
customer service I know down pat. We have a wonderful customer service team, and that's also my background, where I can ease someone into choosing what to wear, and also going through any issues they may have. But The buying side was something new, although I had the sales background. I saw the reverse side of things, and I also know and can back myself on my taste. So the Undone is a reflection of the Harper and Harley brand, where it is minimal and it is effortless and it is wardrobe essentials. So everything that is on the site is picked by me and backed by me, and it's nice.
And worn by you?
And worn by me. And
do you warehouse stock, or?
We do.
Okay.
We have it all in house.
Wow. So it's a proper econ
It
business.
is proper, legit.
What about you, Nadia?
Oh, it's been many ups and downs, many ups and downs. So I didn't have the sales background that I guess Sarah had. So yeah, it's been up and down, and I've changed my platform a couple of times. I've had the online store for 2 years now, and we're finally seeing some great success. Like, we did have success from the start, but we had a lot of issues with a web developer, and we didn't actually have access to our back end of our site for a whole year.
What?
Yeah.
So who's doing the back end?
So you know how you can either go Magento or Shopify, are the two most common platforms in Australia. He designed it off his own platform, and we did that because when we initially launched the site, we wanted it to be huge and we wanted it to be like Net-a-Porter and had this big vision. And he said that if you wanted to do that, you need to obviously have a platform which you can move about, and something that's quite large. So it was his own platform that he created, and it was the front end of the site worked great. So as a customer, it was a great experience. But it was just that we had no access to the back end to see sales, to update stock, to make any changes to the site at all. So everything had to go through him. So we had a rebrand. Yeah, as you can imagine.
Well, especially if you're getting new stock and new deliveries, and not even being able to mine the data as well to see some insight.
We only got to see Google Analytics a year after we launched on our site. So it's been very hard in that sense. But I think it's a great learning experience as well. And I think it teaches you to sort of, as you do with any business or any relationship really that you have, to just trust your gut. And I think the whole time, like, he was such a nice guy, but I think it was just out of his capacity to actually finish the site. And because we kept adding so many different elements to the site and to the front end, he had to try to build these into the back end, but he wasn't able to do so. But he then didn't communicate with us. So if it was just communicated that he couldn't do it, we would have then gone to someone else and done it. But I think it was this thing that he didn't want to disappoint us, and then we were, you know, going down this path that I guess we should have just been a little bit more firm and said, can you do it or not, which we did, but it's just a back and forth. But no, it's going great now, and I think it's great to have loyal customers that come back and share their purchases online, and it's it's a really great feeling. But it's definitely a lot harder, I think, than you imagine. You think you're going to do the, when you start a brand, or a blog, you think it's going to be one way, and then if you want to do it right, it's a lot of hours. And I think for me as well, I had to sort of take a step away from my blog for the last 2 years. I don't know if you're feeling the same, to really put all my energy into the connection. But I'm at a great point now that, you know, the connection is where it is, so I can start focusing back on my blog again, which is exciting.
If it's any consolation, even the big retail groups make so many mistakes when they're re-platforming. I mean, you know, even they set a launch date, and it's always a soft launch.
There's never an official launch date. And
I felt so good. Sorry, just to bump in quickly. I felt so good that when I actually spoke to some of our designers on board, they were like, "Oh my God!" I mean, these are well-known big designers. We had the same issue, and we had to do this for a year, and so that made me feel better as well. That it was, it's an ongoing thing across the industry. I think that everyone experiences.
It absolutely is, and I guess I don't have an online store. I approach it more from I consult to brands, so I work with brands to do these kinds of activations. So I see all of the highs and lows that these girls go through. That's why I'm choosing not to launch an online store. But it is a lot of hard work. I guess the girls have an advantage in the sense that they already have an existing community, you know, an audience of people that love them, love their style, and want to get a part of that, you know. So that really does help. The challenge for brands in particular is, how do you create that sense of community if you want to keep growing? But not to underestimate the work that these girls do, because it is a lot of hard work.
Absolutely. And I was talking to the girls before about some of the most successful posts, and in terms of times to post and content to post and what gets the most traction. What has that effect for you?
I'm probably going to be so different to the girls because I think for me, I've always got more of a personal element with my posts. That's what really works for me. So selfies, beauty selfies, like photos, my wedding photos for some reason. So I think for me, I started off doing the blog, but then I've sort of realised now with my blog, when I do my personal posts, that's what really cuts through with with my readers. So yeah, it's always those more personal posts.
And is there a specific time of day, and how often do you post?
I'm quite relaxed with my posting, as in times a day. Like some days I might post more times a day. I think with Connection I'm a little bit more structured and have more of an idea, but I've noticed that if I post after 7 p.m. most weeknights is a really great time to post. I don't know if the girls do that as well. Or even for shopping, so for Connection I find that Sunday evenings from about 6 p.m. onwards is a really great time.
I think it's wine time.
Yeah.
I think that's what I like to do.
And you're bored and you're not stressed yet. You're like, what can I do?
Yeah, before the week started.
Yeah, completely.
And how do you guys measure your engagement levels and your traction, and also if you have commercial arrangements in place, how do you measure how effective a post has been?
Or looking Instagram posts, for example, I think just looking at the likes and the comments.
Okay.
You know, you can open that little bit of reach as well on the Instagram now, where you can actually dive a bit further into it. But I like to see a lot of comments. I like for people to engage, and I think only after the dreaded algorithms happened.
Oh yeah.
So we hate them.
It's like ruining everyone's life.
Yes, but on the flip side, it's also made people want to engage more, so they can create their feed in the way that they want to like dictate what they see. So now I'm a big liker and I'm a big commenter because I want to kind of tailor my feed in a way that I want to see more of that. And before I was just like flipping through and I'm like, yeah, no worries, I don't have to actually engage with this at all. It will still give me what I want. But now you really have to engage.
So the engagement drives up your presence?
Yeah, I think although we hate the algorithms, they're there kind of for a good reason, to give the right content to the right people. So as long as you're creating amazing content in your aesthetic and in your branding and your words, then it's going to do the job okay.
I think one measure that is often overlooked as well, you can obviously look at likes and comments, but I also think a really undervalued measure is sentiment. You know, so you might get 55 million comments, but it might be great, like, yes, you know, like not really much substance. But when you measure sentiment, you know, you're looking at what's the depth behind the comment. When people are like, oh my God, I saw those glasses and now I'm going to go out and buy them, or oh, I can't believe you wore this dress like this, you know. I think that's really a very valuable measure that people don't really put a lot of importance on just yet, because, you know, if someone's really that engaged to kind of go to that length, I feel like that's a very valued lead, which will then ultimately become a customer or a referral to a brand perhaps that you're working with. So sentiment is something that I predict will be something that's measured a lot more moving forward.
I agree. It's like quality over quantity.
100%.
So I think it's like, I know that when we work with different influencers for the Connection, like some of them may only have 15, 10, 20,000 followers, but we get such a greater result from those people than we do from someone that's got 500,000 followers, you know? So I think it's all about the quality of the post and the quality of the comments that are written, as Jasmine said, definitely.
So what was it about the algorithm that everyone hated?
It's such a difference. I just thought it was like this fake thing that was happening. You know, when the posts were going around, like, what was it like? Follow my page, or
notifications.
Notification.
Yeah,
the
turn the
notifications
notifications
on. I was like, I'm not doing that. But we've noticed a massive hit with the Connection. Like, we used to be able to post and then see instant sales results from Instagram. But sometimes you don't see those posts until the next day or 10 hours later. And I noticed it on my feed, and I'm like, oh, I love to follow her. I didn't even see that post came up, and then that post you'll only see it 10 hours later or whatever it may be.
It's really changing the game. It's changing the way that we as influencers, I guess, engage with our audience as well. And I think Instagram's obviously identified that as influencers, we have these commercial partnerships and we have these brands that we love to work with, and so they want to tap into it because they're a commercial business as well. So the algorithm,
want you to pay for it.
Yeah, they want you to pay for it essentially. If you're getting a cut, they expect that they also get it. So the algorithm it really manipulates what you see when you see it. There's not a lot of logic behind it from a user point of view, and it's changing all the time. So as soon as you think you might be onto it, there's another change or another update. So it definitely keeps us on our toes, I think. And it's a big challenge that I think all of us as influencers, or people that use social media for sales or just for brand awareness face.
Or even a user, I find it very frustrating.
Oh, yeah, 100%. I miss so much of the people that I follow. And now that even with the stories, they've kind of moved how the algorithm presents those. They used to be, again, in chronological order, and now they're just in whatever the algorithm dictates is what you want to see. And often it's just like, I don't really want to see this one person all the time. There's so much more content I actually want to see. So it's definitely a challenge, and it's definitely evolving. So it'll be interesting to see how that impacts and how that changes.
I think Instagram and Facebook, as you said, want you to pay for it. So if you pay and boost a post, that will get pushed up to the top of the feed. But if you don't, your post, unless you get a huge amount of engagement, it basically won't be seen, which is so interesting. And I think also video content, that's something that I'm trying to introduce more of, because that's what they prefer over images as well.
Yeah, now they're pushing video very, very strongly. Yeah. So yeah, I'm the same with Nadia. It's definitely, I guess, the new frontier.
Well, then another major change coming into, well, Instagram specifically, well, actually the whole social media space is declaring sponsored posts or declaring your commercial arrangements. How have you guys addressed that previously in disclosing or not disclosing it, and how are you going to approach it moving forward? Because I've someone a mate in the ad space, and they're like, they're going to make an example. They're going to find one blogger that's really high profile that has not declared a sponsored post and completely take them to town.
Well, it won't be me.
Yeah.
Thank goodness.
Okay.
I was so happy when the ethical press release got sent out, because it just means that everyone can play on the same playground. Like, I felt like I was the only one declaring, and I felt a little bit isolated, and it made my post look not as I don't know, authentic, because I had these little sponsored little SPs on my captions, but I knew that so many other people were doing it too without declaring it. So I just really appreciated that now we can all be level. And I've always declared my sponsored posts on my blog. It was very easy, you could always put it at the bottom, but Instagram was so different because it was so obvious. And you're like, oh, well, are my followers going to really like this post even though it is sponsored? I'm trying to make it as authentic and as wonderful as I can, even though I am getting paid for it. So it was tricky to kind of work that in, but I'm just really happy that now everyone is on the same ballpark.
To be honest, I don't think it's really that much of an issue, to be completely honest, because I mean, the commercial reality is that we are paid for a lot of the work that we do. That's why we have jobs as influencers or as bloggers, you know. There is that commercial reality, and I think there is that understanding as well. So I think people are very savvy, users are very savvy. They know when you're kind of working with a brand. So I think the challenge is to really be creating content that is true and genuine to your voice, your style, and your audience. So they're not like, oh, well, obviously she's being paid for it. You know, it should just blend seamlessly, and the fact that it's sponsored or not sponsored really shouldn't be a big differential. And I mean, the US and the European girls have been declaring for years, so it hasn't.
But I mean, I think the fines are something like $220,000 per individual post, and then if you've collaborated with a company, don't quote me on this, it's like $1 million or something bizarre. So I guess it's, even if people think that it's a genuine conversation because there's a brand alignment, there is a financial risk to now moving forward when those changes come into play of not declaring content. So how have you got about it?
Yeah, I agree with the girls totally. So I think it definitely should be there. I think you know, magazines and all other press have to declare it. I've always declared it on my blogs, every single post, but I think I have to admit, years ago, I never used to declare it on my social media posts.
You didn't know how. You didn't know how could I put this out.
And it wasn't really top of mind either.
And I have to agree, like you always felt a little bit, like you were saying, Sarah, like a little bit awkward declaring it because you thought maybe people wouldn't think that it was genuine, but you wouldn't work with those brands.
Exactly.
Like, there's only a few select brands that I even work with that are paid, but they're brands that I have been wearing for years, or I love those brands. So I think that's the issue, that you would wear those brands, you love those brands anyway, and you can work together and create a great partnership, and that's a great thing. But 100% everyone should be declaring it on their Instagram posts and Twitter posts.
We've talked a lot about Instagram. What about other social media channels like Snapchat and stuff like that?
Poor Snapchat.
Yeah, poor Snapchat.
It's getting ravaged by Instagram.
Look, I no longer use it, unfortunately. I wanted to, I was on it, and I felt almost terrible for then moving across, but you kind of have to move where the followers are, and I had to just make that call.
So what was it about Snapchat that wasn't working?
It was a bit clunky, it wasn't discoverable, and that was the biggest red flag for me, is that no one could actually find people.
Why can't they find you?
You had to know their username.
Okay.
And there was no like kind of discovery page.
And you manually have to be like trying to get the right name, and it was very clunky. And also, I just, sorry to interrupt, I noticed probably 6 to 12 months ago, Snapchat, there was a huge move across, and the growth was huge. So I was like, yeah, this is great. And it's great because it's not a Facebook-owned asset. So it was like, we can kind of, you know, do things without these algorithms and all these other things in place. But then as soon as Instagram introduced stories and people took them on board, it's like, you know, like Sarah said, it's where the audience is. So you're investing your time in something where you're getting a small reach versus something that you get a really huge reach. So you got to weigh it up.
So were you on Snapchat?
I'm on
still on
Snapchat,
Snapchat?
but I use it very sparingly now. Very different to 6 months ago. But I was talking to the girls before, well, not I was talking to Sarah before, and I was saying, like, I think it's really important as people that are involved in digital media to really think about being very asset rich. When I say asset rich, it's not, Instagram now is very much the flavour of the month. But like we were saying, it wasn't around when we started our blogs. So having assets that you own yourself, your own website, and also diversifying across a lot of social media platforms, I think really is very important as a brand, because I often say, or I often think, what happens if your Instagram disappears tomorrow? What have you got as a brand? You know, what is your legacy? So I think just being very conscious of that and diversifying strategically, I think is really important. So a lot of us, I think, we have Facebook, we also have Pinterest, I'm on platforms like Lookbooks. So there are lots of other platforms going on, but if it all kind of leads back to your website, something that you own, I think that's where the true value is.
What about you, Nadia?
I feel like I'm agreeing again, but I don't use Snapchat anymore either. I was never great on it, to tell you the truth. I think I'm a little bit better.
The filters are a lot better.
But I'm thinking I'm a bit old, maybe. Like I just turned 32, so I don't know if I'm a little bit too old for it. But the Instagram stories are just so much easier. And I think the reason that everyone was pushing towards the Snapchat content is because you want to see content that's raw and fresh, and I think with Instagram it's becoming also over filtered and you can post it any time. So people are loving the Snapchat, but I think now that you've got the Instagram stories, I'm sticking to that. I still do a Snapchat post here and there, but I'm not very good at it at all. So.
And how do you guys, so in terms of commercial collaboration, say I'm a fashion brand or a big fashion retailer like Uniqlo, and I want to collaborate with you guys, how does that process start, and how long is it before, say, initial contact to the rollout of the project?
It can be really fast, or it can be a longer kind of thought out process as well. A lot of us have agencies we work with that organise our collaborations, especially when we are busy and running stores or running consultancies. You need someone to actually help you out, and to have someone
takes a lot of the admin out of it, doesn't it?
A lot of the admin, a lot of the paperwork, and it's a bit of, they can offer some hand holding, and they can also be our kind of first face to kind of work with us and go through that process. But
because when you started, you would have been doing it on your own, right?
Oh,
and you've been, a contract landed on your desk and you'd be like, oh, that's a lot of paper. So how did you manage it in the initial stages? Did you have to get...
I think you just making sure you read it. Making sure you actually are across all the deliverables and what you are getting in return, and being fully across everything that they expect and the timings, and making sure that it is right for you. And then red flag things that aren't, and negotiate that. But in the end...
What are some red flags?
Maybe too many hashtags, or something as simple as that.
I love it when brand comes to you and they're like, this is a visual example of exactly what we want you to do. And you look at your feed and you're like, this is nothing like what I would ever do. So why is this? I think that's a perfect example 100%. Of when brands are like, we want to work with this person. And then they come to you and they're like, and now we're going to tell you exactly how we want you to do it. And you're like, this is not going to resonate. It's not on brand. It's not a collaboration. It's now just advertising, which if you want to advertise, then advertise on a platform, not through an influencer. I think when you start to engage with influencers, the reason you're doing it is to tap into their audience, because you either like their aesthetic or they're talking to an audience that you want to be a part of. So I feel like a red flag is when they're telling you step by step, this lighting, this colours, wear this, do this, and you're like,
why don't you just do
why
that
don't you just do it yourself? You don't need me.
It's going to work better when it fits in with the way that you post, and what people love that you do. It's like with me, I can't do flat lays. They just, I know you girls might work for you. They do not work for me at all. So if a brand tells me that it needs to be a flat lay, it's just not going to work, because I just know that my audience isn't used to seeing that, and that's not the way I work and post as well. So,
and I think a lot of our experience, it's quite intuitive as well. I think we know at this point, because we've all been around for so long, we know what's going to work with our audience and what's not. So I think it's really important when looking at brand collaborations that there's a bit of trust from the brand's point of view, that you actually know what you're doing. You know when it feels right to post. You know what's the right styling. You know that it's just one of those things. It's almost like dating. It's like when you know, you know. So when you find those brands that come on board and really just embrace you, your personality and your aesthetic, they're the really successful partnerships, and the ones that go on beyond, again, just a post here and a post there.
Okay, and final question. I'm a fashion brand, designer or retailer. I want to grow my social media presence, I want to grow my engagement, what would the top tip be for them by you?
Invest in your content.
Okay.
Do you want me to elaborate?
Yeah.
These like one-liners. I think, you know, you can't just post whatever you want on your feed. You have to think of your brand as a whole, develop that, look at your feed as a whole, create content continuously, work with creatives. If you can't do it yourself, then work with a creator that can get it and that can deliver on it. And yeah, I think just your content is key. And we've heard that term a million times, but it really is.
I agree with Sarah, so I'm not going to pick that one. So I'll pick another one. I think collaboration is really key. So if you're a brand that has 100 followers, you know, it's very, very difficult for you to then reach 1 million followers overnight. The reality is it's not going to happen. So I think finding collaborations and partnerships with people that are aligned to you, your brand, is really important. And then doing that kind of that cross collaboration is how you're going to see that growth. So if you've got great content, you've got great collaboration, that's when you're kind of going to see that traction start to happen.
I agree with both of those, but I also think to be authentic. I think stay true to yourself. I think when you are talking about things that are you're really passionate about, that's when you'll really gather people towards you and you'll gain readers on your blog. And another one is also, I think, just start. I think sometimes you can get really bogged down by the feeling that, you know, you may not know how to take photos or start a blog or what platform to use. But I think once you start, you sort of find the momentum to keep going, and you then will actually realise what you need to do to take the next step forward.
Good advice.
100%. You find your feet pretty quickly.
All right, I think we have time for 1 or 2 audience questions. So does anyone have a question that they want to ask the girls? Don't be shy. 1 question, come on.
No questions.
Oh, you moved. Surely you have a question. You have a question?
Oh, we have one here.
Oh, okay, we have one here.
Oh, sorry.
Wait. Whoever the mic goes to first, is there a mic coming out? No? Okay, you have to scream at the top of your lungs. Go.
Was there a moment for you guys when you had a big jump up?
Good question.
And yeah, was there a moment when you suddenly went from, you know, a smaller number to a big, there was a big leap? And if so, what was that due to? Or has it all been like a really gradual? I feel like there must have been a bit of a moment.
I feel like the first 10,000 and 20,000 followers is the hardest journey.
It's tough.
So if you are in that little area, like, it's a hard slog for everyone, and you can't fast track that. And then when you get past that little bit, you'll see it just snowball, and you now have that reach and that growth, and it just keeps on building and building and building. So
yeah, there are key milestones almost along the way, I think, in terms of numbers. But I think also when you start to get those big collaborations, when you start to tie down those partnerships with brands that you've always looked to or aspired to work with, for me it was probably when I became an ambassador with Veuve Clicquot. I love champagne, natural alignment.
Good partnership.
But you know, it's a global brand, and I think when you start to get those global partnerships under your belt, and then you hit those key milestones, I think that's when you start to feel that momentum kind of building.
I actually do have one. But it's something that's probably not that work related, but it was my wedding again. So I saw a massive jump when
your photos are everywhere.
I know,
personal.
and it was like huge.
Yeah.
It was crazy. Like like 100,000 followers. Wow. After it was like first like 30,000, then 40,000 in a matter of a week or so.
It went to 100,000.
That's amazing.
So get married.
Yeah.
I was 20,000.
Of today's
This is years ago though.
tenor.
This is like years ago, but I was 20. I think I was at 10 or 20,000 followers, and then when anyway, the photos aren't even that amazing, so I just
They
don't
are
even
beautiful.
know.
They are very lovely. Lies. Well, thank you girls so much for sharing your knowledge today. I think we can all walk away knowing that the term blogger is very outdated, and you are businesswomen and influencers in your own right. So thank you for joining us. Please, round of applause. Okay.
Now get off.
Yeah, now get out, because we've got 2 designers.
I don't want to them to
have your water. Do we need to do a water change, or are we okay? While we do that, I'm going to introduce our next speakers to the stage. So obviously this week, a lot of you have spent time taking in the runway shows, all the collections, but there is a huge story behind the business of fashion and all the work that designers do in creating their collections and bringing them to the market. So joining me on the stage to discuss some of these challenges and opportunities is Johnny Shembury from By Johnny and Nicola Finetti. Please welcome them to the stage. Thank you. So Johnny,
Yes.
I remember when you first came to market, every girl in Sydney was wearing those tiny little knitted skirts.
Yes.
These multicoloured, tiny, tiny little strips of fabric all over Sydney. And then since then, you've just blown up, both in terms of scale of your business and as a designer, you've grown up as well. What were some of the key challenges that you faced in those early days in growing your business?
I think the thing that I've always stuck to is knowing your girl and your customer. I think when I first started, I was 23 and she was wearing very different things. Everything was very short and cutouts everywhere, and I've evolved with her, I've grown with her and stayed true to what she wants and needs, and making sure that, you know, there's options. And I think over the years, yeah, the collections have evolved and
So sophisticated.
It's true. It's like, yeah, she's doing different things. Like I've got like friends around me, my sister, like people around that I have as touch points and like see, you know, when I have a girl come to my showroom and they're like, oh, I need to go here. I'm like, oh, I've only got those little dresses. And you start evolving your product and what you're offering. And yeah.
And what about from a business perspective? Because you started as a one-man band and now you were stocked at Myer, you're now moving to David Jones. What were some of the challenges in scaling the business to the level that it is now?
I think so basically the hardest thing for me was sort of, I really just wanted to make dresses. And I started at the markets and making dresses that girls love. It was the sort of the business side that I had to sort of like get my head around, and sort of even still today, like put time aside to like sit down and look at spreadsheets and make sure like I'm doing the right things. I think ultimately, you know, with those DJs and Myer and everyone, I think it's great to be a part of that. But it's all about the product. It's all about like, it's always the product is key and what you're offering and making sure that, you know, it's right for your market and what you're doing and you know her and what she's doing.
But what about in terms of manufacturing? So, you know, you're starting to make these small little cute runs and then your runs blow out to, you know, hundreds of units. And
I think the fashion industry, I've been around for 8 years, and I think the fashion industry, it's been quite a hard 8 years. So starting out, I think maybe if I started like 20 years ago, it would have been a massive jump and potentially a big fall, like for instance, like Bottega or like those brands that you don't see anymore. Whereas for us, it's always been a slow growth. You know, it's like we had a few boutiques, it sort of grew organically over time, and then picked up Myer at the right time, and that was an amazing journey. And then moving forward into like more stores with David Jones. I think ultimately just taking a step at a time and not growing too fast. I'm excited about the overseas market, but I haven't really gone there fully yet because I feel like we still got like things that we need to do in our local market. I feel, yeah, it's just sort of like taking a step at a time, and, you know, and with the growth comes staff, and like, you know, only to recently we've had a full-time warehouse girl. Before it was just us trying to manage everyone just to sort of get things out, but it's like...
Do you mean from dispatch, you managed your own?
Yeah, so we do that all in-house, but it's fun, coming to the realisation slowly that you're needing to grow, but making sure there's enough money and everything to make sure that you can pay those wages and steadily grow the business so everyone's got something to do, and yeah. And
Nicola, you've been around...
Well, for 35 years.
For 35 years, and through various iterations, wholesale, retail, Myer, David Jones. You've seen it all, you've done it all.
Well, I'm still doing it.
You're still doing it, and still doing a fantastic job.
But in a different way, I guess. Is everything changing and everything, so really.
What did you find were the challenges in the early days for you in growing the Nicola Finetti label?
Well, in the beginning it was quite easy because it was like 90s. So
in the 90s.
It was very easy. Today is all these new things happening, like websites or influential or all these sorts of things. So really, it was a different way to grow and to be what you are.
And what are the key changes that you've made in your business to survive? Because I think Johnny touched on an important point.
Well, you have to be creative and you have to like what you do.
Yeah.
And I think soon you like what you do. I think you all the time find something new. And I have a clientele that goes by, I think, 25 to 45. But sometimes it can expand in 17 or 60. So it's like what you do is like your creativity. I think at the bottom line is that keep you going.
What about from a business perspective, though?
Well, I'm not very good in business.
Do you have a business partner? Do you have someone that looks...
No, but I can do it myself. But again, I think in the beginning it was very good. I grew up very, very fast and everything. Now I'm more redimensioning everything, but it's okay. It's working still.
Yeah. You mentioned your online store. Is that an important part of your business?
Well, now it is, but I think it's the most important part of the business, because in that case you can sell to everywhere in this country. Really, people from, I don't know, Darwin, that they will buy. Well, yes.
Wow.
But from Darwin or Perth or more further in the country. So there are people, they are more, you have a more big audience with the website. Yeah.
And Johnny, you talked about department stores. What does it take for a designer to get into that level of business? What do you have to do?
I think you need to have a great team behind you and have people that support you and you can sort of help you navigate the way through, and also making sure that they're very supportive as well. Like, I think it's a big jump to jump into a department store. However, it's not scary.
Why is it a big jump?
Oh, they've got a lot of processes that in place. It can get scary if you don't perform. They could ask for like money back or all these. Like, there's a lot of things set to protect them, but you need to make sure you're protected as well.
Yeah.
I think for us too, a big part of it was ensure we're not only just selling in the store, but we're working with them as a partner for dressing, for spring racing, and for dressing their ambassadors and being included in the show, and making sure that there's like enough like brand profiling, and making sure that we stand out amongst the other designers as well, to make sure that the girls are coming to us for a certain type of option.
And for both of you, what have been some of the most commercially successful either collections or projects or times in your business where you've gone, yeah, I'm making money?
I think it was an exciting time when Myer came on board, because the orders increased and then the distribution increased, and then then you can hire more people and the team grows, but keeping up with that. So basically for the last 3 years, I have literally been treading water, just sort of finding our place in terms of, we've got these great orders, but we need hands. So it's only up until now where I'm sitting back and realizing, okay, well, that wasn't actually enough, even though it was amazing, but I've needed all these extra other people, and now they're all in jobs, and I have to pay these wages. So now what's the next step? And the next step for us was more doors, international growth, building online, making sure whether we go down the retail path and do our own stores, which takes another lot of capital and a whole lot. Like I'm self-owned, I don't have any investors. The challenge, like whether to engage an investor, how not to get ripped off, like all that stuff plays through your mind.
It's really hard. Like you have to be across so many aspects of the business, whether it's cash flow, legalities, export, PR, marketing, production. And I guess finance is a big issue in the design industry, because as you mentioned, you can get an order and all of a sudden you're flushed with cash. And then because it's a seasonal trade, there are highs and then there are lows. So, Nicola, you probably had the most experience with this. How do you manage cash flow throughout the year?
Well, I imagine for many years, so it's quite easy for me to manage that. But I said...
How? Tell us your secrets.
Well, you have to know exactly. So you have to sell, I think one of the most important things is to sell to a department store that we are securing money, or in 14 days or in 30 days giving a discount or something. So
do you mean if you don't deliver within 30 days, they enforce a discount? Is that what you mean, or?
No, you have to give a percentage, a discount.
Yeah.
to get money eventually in 14 days.
Yeah.
So if in 7 days you can get, they can buy the product, but they want a discount, but in 14 days they get a bit less of a
You can
discount.
get all the money back, so really, so your cash flow is very good. With boutique instead, sometimes you have to wait 90 days or because or sometimes they don't pay, so really. But for me, it started like in '95, and really, I was in David Jones. I started, in the beginning, I had a boutique or something, but after
You had 5 boutiques at one stage.
Well, that is after.
Yeah,
but
we won't talk about that.
Yeah,
yes, we will. Yeah,
so I think it's very important to have somebody that he will pay you in the right way. So really, the department stores is the only one that they will help you in doing that. Regular income. And that is what happened to me in '95, and so after that it was. But it was the same process that he has today. Really, so the only thing is today you have more designers that they do at this job. So really, it's maybe difficult to stand out if you are a very new one. It's very difficult, but it was the same type of process. It was no difference, really.
And how do you manage cash flow, Johnny? Because you're saying, you know, it's really hard when there's so much demand for your product. You need more staff, you need expenses like PR, production, but you have this much demand and this much money.
So what I've done is I have segmented the collections. So like I'm dropping more, less more.
So you will have
more money. You're dropping more, less more.
So for instance, there was a time when I was doing like summer and winter, and then you'll have a collection that's on the floor for 6 months and it's like old.
Yeah.
Whereas now it's like autumn's dropped. Autumn is 2 months, winter is 2 months. So you have a Feb, March drop for autumn, April, May for
So it will
summer,
be paid.
So you basically every month there's something new in store, and also there's cash flow. It's like you don't really have a lull in like payments.
Yeah.
So it's not like big in and out. It's like sort of spread across the year. And then June is always like the south month, and then we have January as a sale month too.
Yeah, that is the best one.
So it's like spreading it across.
Spreading it out throughout the year.
Yeah.
And you mentioned potentially you want to look at export, but that's a whole different beast.
Well, we have a few boutiques. We've stocked on Revolve too. Like I think now we feel a bit more confident going into those sort of agreements because they can be quite intense.
Do you mean from like a contract perspective? Yeah.
And also like logistics and everything else. I think we've done it enough now, and we feel confident with our team that we can probably take on that. So this year we met with Saks, and unsure what that's going to come up, and Shopbop and all those guys, and so we've met with the great guy from 2 girls from Dubai this morning, and I think that's our next phase of growth, you know, because it's easy for an Australian department store to become a big fish in your business, and it's about ensuring there's a great mix, so if anything was to pull, you're still okay.
Yeah, spreading the risk.
Yeah.
And the product has to sell, really. People, they have to be very interested, but in the same time has to be able to wear it and do it what they have to do with the dresses.
You've done export.
Yes.
And you've had some challenges in that department. What was your biggest one? I think you told me once on stage, so I'm not letting a secret out, is that you had to, there was a New York company and your product was at the dock or something, and then it all returned back to Australia.
Well, yes, the American is like that. So really, if you don't deliver it on time.
So you had a late delivery and they sent the whole shipment back. So how do you avoid that? You deliver on time?
Well, you have to have a broker or something. So you have to be more engaged with what America wants, in the same time the product in the way that they want it. I think it's easy to sell, for example, in Asia or maybe in Europe and Asia, Europe and the Middle East. But American, they want to have something that is a flaw in the garment, they will send it back. Yeah. So really, they have to be everything perfect. So or they want more discount or something.
They want more discounts as well. So when you...
It's better to give a discount than the things back. Yeah.
Oh, I agree.
But in that case, they didn't want it.
They didn't want it?
No, because it was too late.
How late are we talking?
Well, it was late, I think, maybe 14 days.
2 weeks.
Yeah, but that was the problem of the broker, that I didn't engage properly with them.
So how do you find good brokers? How do you find good distributors?
Well, you have to search, but today is quite easy. You can search very easily and see what they have, what they don't have, who they are. Before it was difficult, because before it was not internet, really, 95. Then today it's quite easy to do that, really. You can engage quite easy and know exactly who is good and who is not. And plus, in the same time, speaking with other people that they do that sort of job or something, they will give you very good information.
So would you ever go international without having a middleman, without having someone else to look after?
Well, yes, I am, but I think when you go in Middle East, it's not a problem. When you go in Europe, it's not a problem. When you go in a big department store, really, you have to deliver on time, so really, you have to be able to have a broker or something that he will do that for you, because the window, like here, for example, the window can be until between, I don't know, the window when you have to deliver, okay, it can be between 9 to 2 o'clock on Friday, for example. If you don't deliver,
so between 9 and 2 o'clock, you have to deliver?
Well, yes, but in America it's maybe 1 hour.
How do you,
but the broker will do that for you.
So maybe they'll hold the stock the day before.
Yeah, and they are prepared, like, they go, because they know what they are doing. Really.
Yeah. And is it more lenient in Australia? So if you don't deliver between 9 to 2, what happens to your product?
Well, it's in function of your contract with the things. Like they can return it, but I have a very good contract, no return, nothing. So really.
Yeah.
So, but he was saying that he had a problem with the returns and you have to pay money back. That was happening to me in 95 when I was working with Davy Jones. They didn't sell it, but I didn't know that because I was new in the things and maybe I didn't know the English. No, it was not sales or return, but it was a clause that if you don't sell it or something, that you have to take the things back.
Okay.
Well, he didn't sell it in the beginning, so I have to pay them so much money back, like maybe $40,000 or something. So then I said, okay, I don't want to work with you anymore, and I went to Myer, and I didn't pay them. I paid them $500 a month or something.
You've paid them $500?
Oh yeah, they want all the money back. I didn't have it. So then so I paid $500, I don't know, for how many years, 2 years.
Oh, like a payment plan?
Yeah.
Okay. But you've reached full circle because you're now back at David Jones.
No, I'm back to Myer.
Oh, okay, I can't keep up.
I went to David Jones 2 or 3 times.
Yeah.
And after Myer. But it's in function of what you want to do and how they treat you, really. And
but really,
if you have a good contract, it's good. They buy it, they don't return anything, so it's good.
Yeah. But realistically, they're also running a business, and
they have to make money. They have to make money. But really, the way that they do it, they have to make money. It's a percentage that you have to make every week.
You have to hit a percentage of sales.
And before sales, you have to hit another percentage. So sometimes you cannot do it. And plus, the department stores, they are not serving the client, really. It's like you go there and buy it. You go in the change room and wear it, and you do what you have to do. So sometimes it's very difficult that your product will sell or not, but it's not because it's no good, it's because I think it's not a service there that it will help them to maybe decide or push them the sales, like when you are in a boutique, really.
And what about you from an e-commerce perspective? How do you approach that space?
I think that's a really important part of the business. It's sort of, because we don't have any stores, it's sort of a place, the one place our customer comes to experience a brand and understand what we're doing for the season and seeing, what's around. I think I love that landscape. I love that the platform. Like, I just think it's really important. I think, as well as Instagram and Facebook, and having that opportunity to tell that story and create your own content and your own message your way. I think it's vital, and I think it's a growing part of the business, because obviously as a designer, it's not online for wholesale, it's online for retail, so there's a bigger margin. It's like and that you can reach a larger audience overseas, and that's what, we're currently seeing like a bigger growth overseas, which is great, and that's what our thing is to like grow, because that's something that you can grow in-house and it doesn't take too much.
And in terms of growing your business, have either of you been in a situation where I've heard it referred to as boutique territorialism, and that is a boutique wants exclusivity for a certain region, or you're starting to stock more and more online stores and the online stores say, no, we don't want you to sell to any more online stockists because we're all selling the same product and it's going to erode our margin. Have you guys had any sort of issues in that space? And if so, how did you?
Yeah, you have that sort of problems, but it's logical. You cannot sell in a situation, like for example in Sydney it's very difficult to sell because it's not, there are no boutiques in Sydney, really. I don't know how it works, but you have to go all the time in the country, that's for example in Boswell Park or something like that. But again, if you put it like one suburb near, like I don't know, you cannot sell to that suburb really. Like here is really, for example, you cannot sell in Paddington and after sell it in Double Bay. You have to choose the Paddington or Double Bay. So then Bondi, but if you choose Bondi, you cannot choose Paddington because people go there. So it's very, Sydney is very strange in the way that how the suburbs works. When instead in Melbourne is different. You can sell to people in different parts of, one in the city, one in Toorak, one here, one there, like in Perth too. So
Sydney's
really, when you start to get greedy that you want to have it more boutiques, so then it's the problem.
What about you?
I feel like with exclusivity, I sort of unless there's a minimum spend put in place, because sometimes they want exclusivity, but they want to buy like 3 dresses, and it just doesn't make sense. So I don't avoid, like I would sell to a Double Bay customer as well as a Paddington customer. It's just about what they pick and making sure that they're across.
Well, but you can put a limit, Joe. You can say $10,000, otherwise no.
Yeah, exactly. So like it's either, if you want exclusivity, there's a minimum spend.
Hey, you have to
get out.
No,
show me the money.
It's logical. You want an exclusivity, and after you buy $2,000.
Yeah.
$2,000 meaning.
And if you want to own that area, you need to then service that customer.
Cough up the coin. Okay.
Yeah, and then if you are having like adjacencies, making sure that, you know, the Double Bay customer is getting something different to the Paddington customer. I think those customers that do are a little bit different anyway.
And final question, before I throw out to an audience question, what one piece of advice would you have for a designer that wants to crack the market?
Well, to be persistent.
Persistent?
Is the only way. And believe what you are doing, and really. And believe in yourself, really. That bottom line.
I think that also, and also just to be creative. Think of like cheap and easy ways to start. You know, it doesn't cost much to start a website and to put up an Instagram. Just be creative and like really like, put your mind into it, and don't think it's not easy, but if you're creative, you can get some great things. If you're getting the right attention, there's going to be interest, and
grow it from there.
Yeah.
Fantastic. Do we have any questions from the audience? No. Questions. We've got time for 2. I'm going to start picking on people. Gentleman at the back who was going to ask one before. Here we go. The guy in the blue suit, I'm picking on you. Quick, think on your feet.
Hi, I was actually thinking on the lines of before as well, and coming back to new businesses or new designers that want to crack the market. How do you build that community, especially at the start? How do you get, is there ways that you have implemented to really go out and reach your audience?
Well, you have to do something fantastic.
Examples?
Because, there are a lot of designers, but if you do something fantastic, everybody will speak about.
How do you get the product out? So you can believe in your product, but how do you reach?
No, you have to be creative enough to do something different.
But then what if you do something different, no one knows about it?
No, I don't believe it. Not something different, something creative, something that is good. Not everybody can do. The problem is that not everybody can be a designer, or can be a doctor, or can be this and that, the best doctor, and I don't know. But the thing is, not everybody can be a designer. And really,
Some
you have
people
to
think
be
they can be a designer.
You have to be creative enough, and people will love you. Like in Fashion Week, I don't know, 2 or 3 that were very good.
Who are the good ones?
A name that is Arabic or something.
Yusuf Akbar.
Yeah, that one. And
half
they
Arabic,
they are there. So I'm sure this guy will grow, but not everybody can do it.
Johnny?
I guess.
I think it's again like being smart about what you're doing and creating things that capture attention, and and even like just understanding first of all what you want out of it, like who you're dressing, and what, like having a clear message and not being everything to everybody, and then focusing. For instance, when I started, it was just little party dresses. There was one thing. I was at the markets. I made 10 dresses 1 week, and they were little slutty party dresses. And then the next week, I made 20, and I just sold it. And then I started getting emails, and then then I started little mini skirts, and then it just sort of evolved into things that people want. Don't be afraid to get your elbows dirty and get in there and just sort of do things. Like, it's not going to all just happen online. You can just go to those marketplaces and engage with the people and just sort of Yeah, and after I think you have to engage really with influencers, not with influencers, like with bloggers, for me it's better bloggers that influence. But you have to engage with them, and you have to engage with magazine, and you have to be cunning. You have to get your things through.
Fantastic, wonderful advice from 2 very great designers. I'm just going to do a quick closing speech. I'd like to thank St.George for sponsoring this wonderful session. Without them, this wouldn't have been possible. And also the organisers of Mercedes-Benz Fashion Week Australia, who have not only given us this wonderful space this afternoon, but also helped us secure some really amazing speakers. And of course, thank you all for coming, and I hope you had a great afternoon. Thank you.
Thank you.